I don't know why that happened. All right, and we're back. This is Rapid Application Development, Lesson 6, Part 2. We're talking about a splash screen here, how to do splash screen. So, again, you might think that there might be a stub, some kind of template for a splash screen like there was for an about box. But in fact, in C#, there's not, whereas in Visual Basic, there is. Don't ask me why they did it this way, but in VB, they actually have a template you can put off for a splash screen that has, you can get the assembly information from it's all built in and works, right? Whereas in C#, you have to kind of build it yourself, right? I'm going to show you a cheating method to kind of use VB to grab the form and then use C# to kind of, attach all the assembly information to it as well, right? Because I'm a lazy guy, right? I don't want to make a form from scratch unless I have to, right? So we'll talk about how to do that. There's still some work to be done, but it won't be as bad as you think. Okay, so again, we use splash screens again. It's going to tell the user the program is loading or starting. That's what you use it for, right? Here's a typical splash screen you might see, very ugly image, right? This is like standard Visual Studio stuff that comes with Visual Studio, right? It tells you the name of the program that's loading, the version, I listed the assembly information the same here, and your copyright information, other information. It's very similar to the about box, right? And actually, a lot of them is just an about box. It's exactly the same as an about box. It actually shows you the about box while this is loaded, right? But it's not an about box. And you can notice this form itself, if you look at it, there's no handles to the form. There's no minimize and maximize controls. The border is looking different. All these things is what you need to change when you create your form, right? So it's another form. But what we want to use, because unless you have a big program that's running, your form of like your splash screen, if you create it, and it'll appear and disappear. It'll be gone because your computer's so fast nowadays, right? Nothing's going to load. It's not like we're building like massive programs that are going to control like traffic or something crazy like that. It's not going to happen, right? With automatically controlled cars, right? We're not doing that kind of program. We're doing a very simple, couple form program for my assignments that are pretty simple, right? Anyways, so what you need to do, you add this new form in. Before you add the timer object to the form, you want to kind of put this, your start position should be the center screen. Your text property should be blank, okay? Your control box set to false, because your control box, it basically eliminates, if you take that off, it eliminates the resize buttons and the close button. If there's no close button, there's no resize button if there's no control box, right? This isn't a bad method if you want to get rid of all the X's on your multi-form document. So let's say, you want to stop the user from clicking the X. You only want them to use your exit as an example, right? Any exit buttons or any exit things you have on the form, and you don't want the user to click X, right? You can get rid of the control box. Good and bad. It depends. It's a design choice, and it may make sense in certain situations. On the form, you add graphics. So again, if I go back to this ugly one, here's your graphic, right? Maybe a logo, something that's related to, in your case, I would want you to put your logo on there or something related to the actual assignment, right, that you're doing. So not this assignment, maybe next assignment, you're going to have, hey, do a splash screen and add this logo to the splash screen. Hint, hint, splash screen most likely on the exam. How to do it. Now, do I need you to link it and get all this information? What am I looking for? It's going to be a very simple one where you kind of do it manually. I don't need you to link it to your assembly information. Let's put it that way, okay? Same thing with an about box. About box, splash screen, exam, okay? So again, like I said here, splash screen template does not exist for C# as it does for VB. Don't look for it. If you're looking for a template, you'll never find it for C#. You might be able to download something, but we're not asking you to do that. So how do you do it, right? So again, what you want to do is you want to click on the timer object component and drag and drop it onto your screen or double-click it, and it creates a timer for your form, which basically prevents execution. It creates two things. The timer has a couple of properties you want to do something with, and one of them is the enabled. If you don't set the enabled property of the timer, even though the timer component is part of the form or an object, it'll never fire. So you have to make the timer enabled. You have to enable the timer somehow, right? The other one is the interval, the time interval in milliseconds. You got to specify that as well. So example, 3,000 milliseconds is 3 seconds, so the form hopefully will last approximately 3 seconds. Why do I say approximately 3 seconds? Why not exactly 3 seconds? Could be lag time. Could be maybe your program is big, right? Well, the other reason why it may not last 3 seconds because your computer might be super fast, right? And your timer is going to be affected by the speed of your computer, unfortunately, right? Even though it's 3,000 ticks, it won't be exactly 3,000 milliseconds.
That's not doing cycle ticks, it's doing milliseconds.
Well, theoretically.
Time
it, dude. You'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see. I'm telling you, it's not the same, right?
I know it's not going to be like exactly.
It won't be. And why isn't it?
We don't have a ton of clock.
Right. Well, exactly. The machines are different speeds, right?
It'll be so close.
Sometimes it's slower. Chances. No, if you have an older machine, it might be slower, right? But sometimes it'll be faster than 3 seconds. It'll go 3 seconds are done, right? You have to wonder wonder why. So you hit a timer component, and inside, if you double-click the timer, it'll create that stub of an object for your event handler. Your event handler for your timer runs, right? It's gonna go as soon as the timer is activated. So if it's enabled, it'll run as soon as the form is on. Basically, the timer is activated, right? So here, what I'm saying is this: your timer is gonna use the properties that I've already assigned. So it's enabled A, and it's got 3,000 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds before it does this close. So anything in your timer is going to wait for the interval before it executes the operation. So if you want to delay something, that's what we're creating here. We're creating a delay, right? So if I want to create a countdown timer, right, and I want to count down from a specific clock, I could do that with a timer. The tick object would tick every second, 1,000 milliseconds, and it would do something. The timer would do something. It may not close something, but every interval, right, it's going to subtract one from a timer or whatever. You can create like an actual timer with a timer, right? And there's ways of doing that, but we're not doing that here. We're just delaying the closing of the form because your computers are so fast and your project is so small that if you put no timer on a splash screen, it'll just come up and it'll be gone, right? And again, there's an issue, right? Because we want to make the splash screen appear first. This is the other thing that you have to kind of decide. How do I make a specific form appear first? Right? Well, you do that in the main method of your C# code. And where is that bloody main method anyway? Right? Because you haven't seen it so far. Let's go back to Visual Studio for a second. So here it is. Let me just get rid of all this, save everything, and change anything. If I go to my Solution Explorer on the right here, if you notice, right, I've got properties, references, about box, my app config, my billing form. Oh, I got my program.cs. What the hell is this, right? Well, program.cs is where your main function lives, your main method is right in here. Right? So if I right-click onto it and I click on View Code or I click F7, right, it'll come up. Here's my main method. And if I look down, my main method only has this, static void main, like you see in other C-style languages like Java, right? I have a couple things that I'm not going to touch. This enable visual styles, I'm not touching, all right? This set compatible text rendering default, I'm not touching at this stage, right? But I am doing this. I'm saying I'm instantiating my splash screen right here, right? Here's where I instantiate it. This is where I show it. Here's my show dialog, so it's modal. Means I can't click on anything while the splash screen is going. And then I'm going to use this application.run, so my application class, right? Because remember, when I create my app, I'm actually instantiating my application class. And my app itself is a subclass of the application superclass or parent class, right? So here I'm creating a new billing form, and that's the first form after the splash screen that's going to show. So my splash screen is going to come first, and then I'm going to start my billing form, and then from there, control is going to shift, and I'm going to be able to control my program for my billing form. That's the way you do it, right? And you do that within the main method, which is found under program.cs, that file right here, okay? Let's go back. So again, we decide which form we're going to start up. So this is our startup form down here, and I've kind of labeled it for you, Here's the splash screen. So you're going to put the splash screen on, and you're going to do your exam next week. You need to know this, right? Hint, hint. Please study, view, try it out yourself. Make sure you work before you come in, and maybe even create this bloody thing before you come in, because you're going to be able to use it for Blackboard anyway, right? Don't come in and wait to create it here. That's just silly, right? I'm giving you hints. I'm telling you you're going to use splash screen. I'm telling you need an about box, right? Might as well create them. Yeah, man. Come on, right? I want you all to get 100. Don't worry. So the startup form, again, you can use either the show or the show dialog method for your startup for your splash form. Again, if you use the show form, the show method, then the main form appears behind the splash form. So if I have my main, let's say, billing form or whatever, form number 1, and I have my splash form that comes up in the front, if I use the show method, it'll appear behind it, right? If I use the show dialog method, my next form doesn't appear until my splash screen is gone. Okay, so depending on the effect you want, right, you may want to use one of the two methods up here. So different effects. Okay. Running your program outside the IDE, I'm going to get here in a second. So in your bin debug folder, I'm not going to go in there for you. It's up here if you want to use it. If ever you want to share your code, you want to, your employer, you're in co-op, and they want you to create an executable file. And by the way, there won't be any DLLs or any of that kind of stuff, extra resources. It's all you need is your executable file, and it'll launch. And you won't have to register it with with Windows or anything, right? That's the kind of file we're talking about here. So you have it; it's residing. That's how people make viruses too, right? They can, if you get an executable file, double-click on it, and it just runs. There's nothing that has to be registered, right? It's bad. It's evil, right? What you can do with this stuff, right? Don't do it. But anyways, what I'm saying is you create your executable file. It does certain things, and then you can pass it to the other person. But they have to have the same version of the .NET framework that you're using to create your file, right? So if you said the minimum they need, and you can actually set the minimum .NET version they need, the framework they need, inside your properties manifest, if you will, right? Then that's what they're going to need to have on their system. So if you're made I don't know, if you're programming it in 2012, the default is .NET version 4.5, but not everyone has that as a default on their system, okay? Because some people don't update their Windows, and sometimes they don't use Windows 7. They might be using XP, and your stuff can work on XP. If you create something here in Visual Studio 2012, it'll run on XP, but you got to make sure that your .NET version is the right one for XP, right? FYI. You won't need to do this. I'm not going to ask you to do it in any assignments. I'm not going to ask you to do it in any of your exams to create an executable version. I'm showing it to you as a reference just in case you need to do it for a co-op. And here's another one, changing your default icon. This I may ask you to do, right? Here's your default icon. If you go to your manifest again or your properties, project properties, you're going to see this default icon and then this little ellipses here. If you click on this, it'll allow you to choose another icon, and it won't look like this anymore. You can choose whatever icon you want, but it has to be an icon file. Okay, there's some requirements here. So remember, icons are what? Either 16 by 16 or 32 by 32, whatever you're going to choose, right? And your icon has to, otherwise it won't look very good on your, and that's the icon that's going to appear on your bar there, on your toolbar, right, when your app is launched, right? So if you want to make a custom icon, which most applications have, let's say you want to use your logo as your custom icon, or your logo plus the type of app, I don't know, because, like Adobe would have their type of look and feel, or Microsoft might have their look and feel, and then the app is going to have W for Word and O for Outlook and so on, whatever you're going to do. That's what you would do here. You create your own custom icon. And by the way, there's ways of doing it. If you go online, there's some free online resources that can convert things like GIF files, PNG files, and so on, JPEGs to icon files, ICO files. Some resources online you can look up. Yes?
Just wondering, what's the difference between clicking a form and clicking icon and changing it from the properties window to...
Same. It's resources. All you're doing is you're setting up a resource, and you change the icon. It's just this. You can do it this way, or you can do it from your properties window.
Because
right?
when I go then to the manifest, it just still
But remember that on the properties window, it's going to say the properties window only does it for that form.
Oh, for that specific one. Okay.
Right. This one does it for the whole app. Right. So, and sometimes, I'm just saying, glitchiness prevails, right? In Microsoft products and any other IDE, by the way. You may want to do it in both places, right? Because you may not appear the way you want to. Things aren't exactly WYSIWYG. You know, you think they're going to be the way they're going to be, and then it doesn't look like the way you program it to be. We're not going to do the hands-on programming right now. We're going to skip this for now, and we're going to go on. I'm going to do a few examples, right? So here's our app as an example that for hands-on program. I'm going to close this down. And Jean-Luc was saying, hey, how do you shift between forms here and go between, like, you know, form A and form B and go have a kind of a next and a back button? Makes sense, because you're going to need this for, you know, probably your exam, right? So it's a good thing to show you how to do it. So again, I'm going to create a new project. Follow me along, guys. Might be a good thing to do since we're doing this together, right? So new project. Here, I'm going to make a Windows Forms application. I'm going to call this, you know, lesson 6. I don't know, multi-form or something. You can call it whatever you like. So here it is. I got form 1, right? And I'm going to add form 2. But let's just call this, let's rename it just for our purposes. We'll rename this form. We'll rename it main form, right? Just to kind of go along with that, okay? And just at the top here, we'll do a couple of changes to this main form here. We'll make this so that the main form is, the text is going to say main, so we know this is the first form that we're going to, right? We'll even make a display. The start position of the form will be in the center screen, right? So here's our center screen. So if I run it just to test it here, here it is. Center of the screen, this main form, nothing else, right? And then I want to add in a couple buttons. So I go to my common controls and I click on a button. I'm going to kind of drop it down in here. I'm going to call this button next. And I'm going to call this next button. I'm going to rename the button, of course, so call it next button. All right, here we go. And I'm going to rename the text. I've changed the text property of the button to next. Okay, here we are. So I've got a next button, but it doesn't do anything yet, right? Okay, now I want to add another form. So I go, two ways to do this. Project, add Windows form. I'm going to do it this way. I can go right here, just click Windows form, or I can go here to the Windows form submenu here and click Windows form. Same thing. Add. So here's form number 1 again. It's called form 1. I could have renamed it here, but I'm going to rename it right here. I could rename it on creation is what I meant. I'm going to call this next form. So here it is, next form, right? And it's coming through. And I'm going to change some of the properties of the form again. I want to make this form start position in the center as well, right? And I want to go down to the bottom and change my text to say next. You know, so we know we're going to go from main to next. Let's say I'm going to save everything. I'm going to put a couple buttons on here too. One button here, and I'm also going to put another button here. And I'm just putting them arbitrarily. You can actually arrange your buttons to be the exact same location on every one of your form, which is probably the best practices way to do it. So I've got a couple buttons here. So I've got my back button. Here's back button, right? Because I want to be able to get to there. And I want to rename the text of this button back. And here's my next button. Now, what if I change this? What if I name this button next button? Is that okay? I got another form. Should I name it next button as well? I'm just asking. Any thoughts?
Well, on a logical level or on a programmatic?
Programming level, is it going to affect me?
No.
But it shouldn't.
Because it's separate into the name.
Okay, let's name the next button. Let's check that out. It's the same name as the other button, right?
Associated to a different form.
Very good. Okay, that's good. Simple things, right? People might say, well, should I call it the button? Should I call it the next button? Because my form is called next, and I want to do my context for my buttons. Man, you're going to go crazy, right? If you call all your buttons and controls the name of your form, it's going to be pretty long control names and variable names, right? I also want to change this to next, right? Now, why would I need a next here? I don't have a next form, right? Well, let's make another one. So I go to Project, Add Windows Form, and this time I'll change it here just to show you it can be done. And I'll call this Final, right? My final form. So I've got my main form, my next form, and my final form, right? And I'll add this in. Here's my final form, and this time, instead of creating the buttons like I did, right, because I know I want to have this back button here, but I don't want to have this next button, what if I just highlight it and copy this back button, right? So here it is, I'm copying it, and I'm going to my final form, and then I click on the form and paste it. Does it go in the right location? No, it doesn't, right? However, if I go to my next form, I can get in here the location of where everything appears. If you look through your properties here and you scroll down, right, as an example, you have this location property at 13 and 22, and if I copy this and I go back to my final form, and when I shift over, here's the location, and I change it, right, it'll go back exact. So my back button will be, placed in the exact same location as my next form, so it doesn't look like my back buttons are all ugly, right? And the other thing I need here on my final form is another button. Okay, by the way, the back button, did it automatically get created with a back button? It did, right? So it's got the same name, right? The other thing I need is an exit button. So I'm going to take another button out here and kind of put it, and if you really want to size it properly, you should be able to put it in the same location as you have the other buttons, right? So here's my next button. This doesn't do anything so far, but this button here, I'm going to make it called, I'll call this exit button. Right, because this is the one I want to exit my entire app, kind of thing, right? And here we go. Here's exit. All right, so I got exits. I got my back, right? The next form has back and next, and my main form has next, which isn't positioned properly. If you can see, it kind of bounced around, right? Not to worry though. We're just going to kind of put it in a place where it kind of should belong. There's ways of doing it exactly. Okay, so we got a bunch of forms. I'm going to say them all. Okay, and now I want to add a splash screen. We're going to do that too, manually, right? But we'll do that after we get this stuff working, because that's not as important as making this functionality work when we shift between forms, right? So which one of my forms is going to start first?
Whatever one you set in your main.
It was the first one I created. It's the first one I created, right? The only way I can change the order of my form's appearance, right, is in here under program.cs. Okay, if I actually click on it, it'll do too. And if I scroll down, it shows you my new main form is the one that's going to start first, right? So if I wanted another form, like the final form for whatever reason to start first, I put that in here. Okay, if I don't put, that's how I change the order of my form's appearance. Okay, right now it's main form is the first one I created. Okay, sometimes we don't do that though. Sometimes we'll pull down, we'll make our main form, but maybe there's going to be other forms that you take from other projects that you want them to start first. Example would be your splash screen, right? I don't want to recreate my splash screen from, scratch. I want to take it, I want to create it, before I come into my exam, hint, hint. And then when I come into my exam, it's ready to go, and I can just populate it with the image that I need, right? So think about this kind of stuff. Okay, so here we are. This is how we start off which form starts when, right? Now I want to kind of move. I want to kind of move from this main form to my next form, right? So if I double click on next, that's probably the right thing to do, right? So here's my next button, click event. And again, I want to hide the current event, the current form, and I want to show the next one. But we're not going to do that, all right? We're going to do a few steps so you see the effects of how everything works when we go from one form to the next. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we know the form I'm going to is going to be the next form. That's next form, right? So I know I've already created the class, which is called next form. I already created it. So here, all I got to do here is kind of use next form, which I already have, right? And I want to instantiate a new form based off this class that I've kind of designed already, if you will, right? So here I'm going to call it, I might call this my next form, right? Or whatever makes sense to you, okay? I'm also going to say it's equal to new. I'm going to have to use a new keyword, and I have to use next form again, right? with parentheses. So that's the first thing I do. I have to instantiate my form. So my form is now instantiated, right? I haven't done anything with it, right? Questions up to here. I'm instantiating the form. I'm creating that new object. It hasn't been shown yet. Now, if I want to show the form and it's going to be a modeless form, right? So example would be next form would not be the one I use. I have to use my next form, right? Because that's the one I just created. Here it is. Dot show. Right? If I use the show dialog method, the show method, right? What is this going to do? It's going to show the other form. Okay, let's save all that, and let's run my app here. Here's my app. I'm running it. If I click the next button, right? Both forms are there, right? I haven't done anything with my previous form. I'm just created a modeless form that I can shift between the both of them. If I click exit on my main one, what happens to this one? Anybody? Guess? It's gone? Stays there? They both close? Okay, let's see what happens. So I click this one, both of them are gone, and my program shuts. Why? That's why. My first form instantiated the next form. My main form instantiated the next form. When I killed the main form, my next form disappeared. Let's try this again. What if you do here, click next. Here's my next form. I'm just going to move it over here for you to see both forms now. And I click this one. What's going to happen? Is it going to kill my app? Okay. I'm glad you guys can see this functionality here. This is common sense for Windows, right? Think about this, guys. So how do I close off my main form when my next form closes? Right? We got to think about that for a second. Okay. So that's the first thing I would do. I want to show my form, but I also want to, don't I want to hide my other form? My original form? If I do this dot hide, right, as an example, the first thing it's going to do when I click this button is hide my form and then show the other one. Let's try this. All right? So here we are. We've got next. Click on this. Oop, the other one, it kind of flashes. Now the other one's there. And if I close this one off, my program's still going, right? Because I haven't done anything with it, right? And skip the X, when that X is closed or clicked, how do I close this off, right? What if I close instead of hide, right? So here's, I'm going to use and I got to do this right, because otherwise it won't work. Yeah. Just to show you this, right? So now I'm creating the form again. I'm closing it. So now I go next. Boom. It closes. That can't work. Because I'm instantiating my form, my new form, my next form, from my main form. And I close it. What does it do? Close destroys the original one. Okay. What if who cares about this, right? What if I take this, and instead of there, I do it here? Doesn't matter. Let's try it. Let's see if that's true. Next. And it's closed. So you can see that you can't close the calling form, the first form that opens up, right? You can't close it off. Yeah. How did you do it? You hide it, yes. I'm saying, how would you do it? Is there another way to do it? Can you close, like destroy the original form and run the other ones, the ones that are after? You can't do it. Not if it's instantiated from there. Yes. No, because a splash screen, and this is the trick. The splash screen, this is where you can do stuff, is called from program.cs, right? Remember, program.cs controls. Oops, we don't want to change that. Program.cs controls it right here, right? Remember? Here, I'll instantiate my splash screen here before my application runs, right? Right in here. This is where I put it in, right? Could I, right, run different forms? Could I do more than one application.run?
Well, you could, but it opened up two of them.
Would it? So two applications run at the same time. So two forms would pop up at the same time. I could, right? And then closing off one wouldn't necessarily kill my app, right? Because I have my main. This main function controls my app. This is like main in any C-style language, right? Okay, but be careful here, because that's not maybe the effect you want, right? Or maybe you do want it. So example, and this is, if I want to instantiate all my forms first, sometimes programs do this. They use main for all their applications being turned on. So boom, 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 it instantiates all of them, right? And then what happens is they're preloaded in memory, but all of them are hidden except for the first one, whichever one that is. Because when they were activated, I hide them all, right? Until this one's the first one is being shown, and you can set up variables to show the first one, not the other ones. So again, to me, like for example, on load, the only one that's going to be shown is the first one, this main form. The other ones are all hidden on load, right? So I could do that. Let's try that from here. So say if I want to try, just to fool around and see if there's a problem, because I know some of you are going to say, hey, why don't I try this way, this fancy thing that Tom is saying, is it going to work, right? Or maybe it's not so fancy, right? So we're not going to call it main form now. We're going to call this next form. Oops. Here it is. So I want both main form and next form to kind of come up. Let's see if that works. So I click start. Where's next form? How come it's not here?
Maybe it has to wait for the first one to finish before next week.
Yeah.
My best guess is that main form is blocked again.
Is it? Let's say if I close this off here first, what happens now? There it is.
Yeah, because you run an application, you should let you start procedural based until you finish with that application.
Each form has its own namespace, right? Each form has its own memory space. I could run them all, right? But they're not instantiated. Next form will not be instantiated until I've closed off my exit form. Now, that could be a way to shift between forms. There's another way of shifting between forms. Whereas you're killing the first one before you move to the next one. This is where I talked about passing the ball, right? Where you pass the ball of variables on to the next one, right? Before it closes, form closing, right? Pass it on to this new one. But in this case, because the new one hasn't been instantiated, there's no place to pass it to, right? I've got nothing to pass because I'm closing before I pass, right? So this is a problem. So I probably don't want to do this, right? I probably want to run only one and have my main control form run everything else.
Can you instantiate it before you hit run?
Could. I can instantiate the form and not create not actually run it.
New main form.
Yeah. I'm not actually doing anything, right? I'm not actually showing it, right? That you can do, and that's what the splash screen does. So let's talk about a splash screen. All right. So I've got this stuff. Let me close this CS file here. And again, I want to show you these things because, yeah, my documentation shows you some of it, but it doesn't tell you how to put it all together, right? Unless you want to try and do your hands-on. The hands-on shows you everything you need, right? If you actually look at the code that I put up on Blackboard, the hands-on code tells you how to do a splash screen that has links to the assembly information and everything else. It's fully functional. Okay, so I want to create the splash screen. Let's just close all this stuff off just to make it cleaner a little bit, right? So I'm going to now create a splash screen. So project, add Windows form, and again, there's no default. There's no template for the splash form. I'm just going to create a Windows form, and this one is called splash form, right in here, right? Because I might as well name it properly. Here it is. So here's my splash form, but I got to style it a little differently because my splash form right now, this is the only one that I'd only want you to do something like this. I don't need you to link it back to the assembly information because it takes a little bit of effort to do, and I'll show you what it requires, all right? But you don't need to do anything beyond what I'm going to show you, okay, for a splash form. You need to put it in the center of the window. That's kind of makes sense, right? You maybe want to resize the bastard, right? A little bit like this. Make it a little bit different. Make it nicer, right? You probably want to put some kind of image on here as well in the background or something, right? And what you want to try and do is get rid of things like the control box. So I want to get rid of my control box. Here it is. Instead of true, so this control box is going to have my X, my minimize, and my maximize buttons, and so on, and my restore, right? So I want to turn that off. So there it is. No control box. Now, the reason why it has this big title bar here is because I have a title. So here's my title, which is splash form in the form of this text property. I'm going to get rid of it, right? And all of a sudden, boom, my title bar disappears. But it still doesn't look right, right? And the way to do it is to kill the border, change the border style. So if I go to border style, and if you go to, where the hell is it now? Form border. Here it is. Form border style. If I, instead of sizable, I don't want to make my form sizable, right, at all. I want to make it, you can do it none. That's one way. Or think single. None is good, right? None makes it, there's no border at all. So you can't size it, you can't change it, you can't do anything to it. None is a good choice. Fixed single is also a good choice for a form border style. If I go fixed single, that's okay, right? I can't really resize this either, right? And the same thing, you can choose other kind of border styles. Fixed tool window, sizable tool window, and so on. Fixed dialog, fixed 3D. There's different options here. Again, I would suggest either fixed single or none. Let's go with none, right? I got to put something on here, right, to make it seem like a splash screen. So let's just use a label for now. So here's our label. And inside the label, we're going to say, my splash screen. Yeah, spell it properly. And let's say we want to make this label, I don't know, be big somehow. So it's not going to be so small. And let's change our fonts for this splash screen so it's quite large. Like 48. See if we have enough room for that. No. Let's change it for a little bit bigger, smaller than that, 28. There we go. And I'm just going to manually put it in the middle of the screen here. There we go. You can actually size it and move it around. That's all I want to do. Here's my splash screen, right? Save it. But right now it doesn't start, right? Because again, in order for us to start my splash screen, I'm missing a couple of components, okay? We're not going to use a timer object, so you can see what happens, okay? So here's my splash screen, and I want it to start before my main form loads. That's the first thing I want to do, okay? So let's go back. I want to go back here to my program CS, right? And I want to view the code, and in here, I want to describe and instantiate my splash screen, right? So here it is. My splash screen is called splash form, right? I know that. And then maybe I want to call it my splash screen, or whatever you want to call it. I'm just naming it this because I just feel like it, right? New. It's got to be contextual, though, realistically, and with what we're doing. So I've instantiated here, but I haven't done anything with it. I haven't shown it yet, right? So the right thing to do is create my splash screen. Here's my splash screen, and I want to create a show dialog. If I go show dialog, right, the first one, this splash screen will finish before it shows me the next screen, which is my main form, okay? So that's enough right there. That'll show my splash screen. So let's run it. If I run it, oh, here's my splash screen, but it's not disappearing, right? What's happening? How come? I don't have a timer on it, so nothing's going to happen to it, right? So it's going to stay there forever, right? Splash screen comes up, and nothing happens to it, and doesn't exit, right? So if I go and put a timer on it, so let's get rid of this. Here's my splash screen, and I want to drag in a component. So I go down to components, and and I want to find a timer object. Here's my timer object, and I drag and drop it onto the screen, or you can double click. Here it is, timer 1. If I want to rename it, I can. I'm not going to. Timer 1's okay, right? And let's say I want to enable my timer. So right now it's disabled, so I enable it. And I want to set my interval to 3,000 milliseconds. Okay? This is good. If I run it from here, will it do anything? No. It's going to sit here forever because I haven't done anything with my darn timer, right? The timer is running, but I got to respond to the interval event it's going to do something, right? So I double click on the timer, and it has this timer.tick event, which basically this tick event says as soon as my interval is done, do something. It's what I want to do, right? I want to do a this.close, right? It's going to destroy my splash screen. But that's okay because my splash screen is going to revert control back to my new application through my main method, right? So it's okay to destroy it here. I could also hide it. Silly, because I don't know why I'd want my splash screen hidden. I'm not going to go back to it again, right? But let's suppose your splash screen is the same as your about box, and they're exactly the same. Someone may be smart like that and say, hey, Tom, what if I just I will hide my splash screen, and then when I go to my about box, I don't have to have an about box. It'll be my about box. It'll come up, right? Yes, theoretically, it would meet requirements. Yes.
Isn't it use show dialog, so when you close, doesn't that just hide it anyway?
typically. Yes, you're right. Show dialog will close. Close will hide it. Yeah. But because we're reverting control, we're in main. It's different, right? Because we're not within from one form to the next, right? So yes.
So if show dialog works like this, why do we use application.run?
Well, because application that runs shifts the flow, the control flow, to that application. So it's almost an encapsulated. I'm creating an object called application, right? That's what I'm doing. That object, if you notice, I'm instantiating this object. If I go back to programs.cs, right here it is. If I show this, here I am. What am I doing here? I'm not just running it. I'm actually creating a new object called main form, right? So I'm saying is, let's instantiate this anonymous form object. That's what I've done, right? I could do this in 2 steps. This application run, I could instantiate it first and then run it in here, right?
Can you not do the same thing you did for slash?
I could. Yeah, there's a lot of control, guys. This is the basic stuff. You're right. Right. If you think about this, there's a lot of control you have here in main, but just be careful what main does. When you use the application.run method, right, what does it do? Is it instantiates a new application object. That's different than what we're doing with our splash screen. Okay? Yes?
Doesn't it just shift all control over to that form in that case?
It does, but it also creates when you create an application, your application has a lot of other methods attached to it, right? Whereas if you just create these forms are not applications. Forms don't have all the other methods that applications have attached to them, so be careful. You may not get the same result. Okay? Okay. So we're back. So now we've got the splash form. We're listening for the close event, and it'll close off, we're saying, in 3 seconds. Let's run it. So here's my splash screen, 1, 2, 3, and then it's gone, right? And hey, how come what the hell? How come my other form didn't come up? How come? How come? I said. This closed. My application's still running here, right? But where's my other window? How come? How come my main program is not running? Wow, how come? Anybody? Yeah.
You called it from within the form rather than from the program?
But okay, but when I go back to my PowerPoint, it shows that I'm doing a splash form. Here I'm showing the splash form. Then I should be showing the main form, right? Well, my main form never shows. How come?
Well, it showed briefly.
It showed where? It showed.
Flash, like for
Flash.
split second.
Oh, let's see that again. So, I'm not touching it. And it's gone. It's here, right? It's down here. That's where it is, right? So if I actually put up there, but how come it started to hide on me? Why did it shift control and focus like that?
Show down and switch focus?
Show dialog. I mean, what should I have done? Should I have?
It should have been just show, dot show if you want to kill it with the close.
I could, right? But I could set focus on my activate, right? I could do that. The reason why I'm showing these things is because these are the things you're going to come up with. You're going to come up with this stuff and go, Tom, you didn't talk about this stuff in class, and now when I'm doing my app, I'm screwed, right? I don't get it. How do I do this stuff, right? Okay. Maybe it won't. But what if it does? Right? Okay, so let's go back. So let's stop it. So I want my on load. Is it on load or is it on activate? What do I want to do, right? I want to basically show my bloody form, right? On load, right? I'm only showing it as it is, right? It's not focus, right? So is there a set focus or some kind of event, right, that I can show, right? This dot set focus maybe? Dot focus for this dot focus, right? So if that's true, right, when it's loaded, I want to shift focus or dot focus onto my main form. So I go to my main form, and this is the right thing to do. Double click on this, right? So on load, right? I could do it here, right? Maybe let's try it. This dot focus. I could do it here. I could. Let's see if it works, right? I don't know why you'd want to do that. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's gone again. How come? So it created, and then I lost control again. I lost focus. It hit it. Anybody?
Call it from the splash screen?
Could. Could.
Because the splash screen is closed, like on the...
But if I call it my splash screen, would I have to instantiate it?
Could you not activate it though? It wasn't instantiated.
It wasn't instantiated yet. It's not instantiated until my application run, right? So that would cause the same problem. I want my splash screen to go away. I could do it from there, but that would give me an issue, right? So what about shifting this focus instead of here on this event? Right, so remember, I'm doing it on this load event. The load event, what does it do? Remember, I'm teleporting and all of a sudden, I'm gone, right? Somehow it's just focus around, right? Activate, right? That'll definitely make it shift the focus when I activate the form. It should shift it automatically, theoretically, but if I want to explicitly say that's going to happen, I don't want to guess that it's happening. I can put that in. So let's take this out of here. So I will cut this away. Oh, that's good, Tom. That's excellent, Tom. It's fantastic, Tom. Let's go back. I don't know what happened there. I guess my virtual machine is, not foolproof. Changes are not allowed when I'm running. Oh yeah, I'm running for the code. That's bad too. So let's just go Control X from this dot focus, right? I want to go back. I want to save everything. Go back to my main form. Here's my design view. Hit my my events, right? And where my load event is showing. Here's my load event. I want to kill my load event. I don't want to have this anymore. So bye, right? And what I want to do is when I go to all my events, these are all the events in my form, right? I want to go to my activated, double click on it. Here it is, and then kind of paste that in here. Maybe that makes sense. So let's try that. Splash screen, 1, 2, 3, disappear, and gone.
Is it because you haven't actually clicked on it, which means you haven't activated it?
Why is it doing that? Look, if I go back, let's just close this off for now, just to close the solution. So here's my solution. Yes, I want to stop debugging. And I want to open up my hands-on assignment, right? So here's my project solution. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to go to my lesson 6 hands-on, right? And in here, you'll see that I have a splash screen the same way. Here's my splash screen, right? My splash screen here. And if I double-click on it, right, and double-click on this, oh, wait, how come it's not? Because you'll see why. Here's my splash screen. And I have all these getters and setters because that's the way I get the assembly information, right? I initialize it. I get the assembly information. Then I just close. That's all I'm doing. Here's my close event. If I go to my tick event, my timer, it shows true, and this, 3,000. It's the same as everything else. And when I go back to my other screen, hold on, here's my billing form. Here's my billing form. There it is. And if I go to, if I look at the code, and I look through it, I've got my billing form. Here's my about tool strip. That's interesting. I don't think I see any kind of, really quickly, I go to my events. I have my load, right, which is there. It's a billing form.load. I get nothing in my activated. So how come it's doing that? And my billing form.load is not missing. Is not working. How come? How come? Tell me. Sure, it's working. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because I created my splash screen second. When I created my forms, I started creating my forms. The way to do it is, the proper way to do it, easier way to do it is create splash screen first, then your main form, then all the other forms. That's the easier way to do it from a create. But why should that make a difference, you might say?
Because you're adding a form column to it, so then it goes by sequence in the whole application.
Could. And where is that location? Where's that stuff housed?
Can't you like right click on one of those things instead of default? No, that's a process.
Oh, you're right. That is exactly right. Right? So what you could do is, so if you look at this, another little property that's here. If you look at splash screen, let's go back, right? Here's my splash screen, and down here in properties of my splash screen itself. Now, it's not showing everything, but if you look down, there's all these different kinds of other properties, right? And one of them is start position, but there's another property that I'm not seeing here that I want to see. Topmost is true, right? If I look at billing form, right, and I scroll down, topmost is false, right? Let's look at that, what it looks like in my code. So let's close the solution off and go back to my other solution that I was using for my project. Some other files here, right? Let's go to the multiform, open up this, and here I am. I'm not going to set my focus. In fact, I shouldn't need this at all, right? Why is it doing this, right? And go to my main form, and I want to go back to my events and kill my unactivated because I don't need that right now. That's the right way. That's the right sequence of events to kill that, right? Save everything. And I want to check on my main form and on my splash screen what is. So let's say my splash form, here it is. If I look at my, I pull it up here. Here's my splash screen. And I go down, topmost is false. So if I change this topmost equals to true, here's my topmost form. Okay. It indicates where the form always appears above all other forms. That's kind of good, right? What about my main form? Here's my main form, right? And here it is, right? Oops. Let's go to my design. Here's my design. If I go back down to here, my topmost, if I look down here, yes. Thank you. Topmost is false. If I make this topmost equal to true, and now I run it.
I have a question about that.
Oh, that's 1, 2, 3. Oh. Yes.
I'm thinking with Windows, isn't that setting it so that it's always above all Windows? Like that is that what it's doing, or is it just your program?
It's whatever the form that's when it's activated, when the form is active and has focus, it's above all other forms. If I make all of them like that, is that going to affect my program? If I hide and close and whatever, who cares, right? Whatever has focus, yeah. Everything else will run it, yeah. It'll be the topmost form, right?
Both of mine are still false and mine still runs.
Because of the order that you made it, that you did it. It's glitchy stuff, man. It's glitchy stuff. I'm telling you. I'm telling you here. I'm telling you how to fix the glitch, right?
So that setting is not like a float on top.
Here. Well, let's check that out. If I click on my other function in my code here, let's go to here, right?
Well, if you just click on another window, then
Yeah, let's go to Windows Explorer here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is floating on there.
See?
Floats on top. That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking. I'm like,
Bad,
that's not
right?
good.
This is bad. This is like, no, it's not going to go away. This is the one on top, right? That's a bad thing, right? I'm showing you this because sometimes you'll get this issue. That's what I'm saying, right? For the purposes of your code or whatever, you know, you can do different things like this to try and fix your problem, right? Let's turn it off. Topmost is equal to false. And leave the splash screen topmost as true.
That makes sense because then you can see on top of any program.
Okay? Now let's run it. Does it go away? And it's gone again. Now, there's a couple things that are going on in my environment that aren't happening in your environment that also might be causing this issue. Just in case you see the same thing, if you're running a virtual environment. I'm running it on a Mac, right? So it could be that's causing it to happen, okay? But I'm telling you in advance that if you see this problem, okay, now on the exam or whatever, don't worry about it. Because it might be something that happens. It's okay, all right? Because what you're doing is, in reality, I'm not going to have Visual Studio running in the background when you're running your code. You're not going to, right? And the way to test this is run it externally without Visual Studio. So remember that I said run your code without your code? Take that executable and then see if it does it without running Visual Studio. And if it still does that, that's a problem. If it minimizes it right away. Shouldn't do that. Your code should start off maximized and running, right? That should be your default state. And you could run that. You could check that. Like if you want to start your program off minimized, right? Example here, right? Main form, right? Windows state normal. Well, you can start it minimized or maximized, right? That's another thing you can fool around with. But this is not the solution. This is not the solution. Okay. For our purposes, just so we can see my form, because it might be my environment, I'm going to make this true, topmost, for now, so we can see the things that we're doing, right? I've already gone to the next one. When I click next, now I want to go back. Okay? So let's go to my next form. And here we are. And I want to program my back button. Well, what's my back button going to look like? I need some interaction here, guys, because I'm doing this for you. I'm not doing it for me. So tell me what to do. You guys are always answering the questions. I'm going to pick somebody now to see if someone's asking. Okay, you in the back. Close? If I close this, right, just theoretically, and I've opened this with a show method, what happens? It's destroyed, right? If I have a next and back button, it presupposes that, from a functionality perspective, that I'm probably going to come back to this form again. So it depends on what you want for the user. If you want all the stuff in this form to reset when I come back to it again and be recreated, as an example, we're all good. Close it off, right? If you want this, when we come back to this form, for it to just show again, right, and hide it, okay? That's the answer. So let's try that first. Let's try this close and see what happens. So we'll go, first thing we're going to do is we're going to say this.close, right, let's say. We'll see which order is the right order, all right? And now we want to go back. Now, we don't have to instantiate the form that was created, right, because it's already there. I don't have to instantiate that form again, right? So what do? How do I go back to the other one? Yeah. Is it show or show dialog? Is it? Show. Very good. Because I don't need to show dialog. It makes it modal. I don't need to make it modal because it's something that I'm going to keep going back and forth from. So it's main form dot show. Okay. If this works, maybe I should put the right method in there. How come? Context, right? The first form is not hidden, right? I have it instantiated. But if I go back, am I actually instantiating a new form? Is that the original form that I came from? How do I go? What do I do here? How do I shift it back, to the other one, right? The reason why I'm asking you these questions is, if you go to the back button, you're clicking the back button to go back, right? But the form isn't showing. Yeah. Parent.show. Let's try. Is there a parent? Yes, there is. Yeah. Well, let's just go. I want to try it. Let's see parent.show if that's going to do it. I want to try it out. So here's my splash screen. It goes away. My new one comes in. I go next, and it crashes. What was that? I haven't pressed the button though. How did it close? Why? How come? How come? I could, but why did it close, man? I shouldn't close my form. I didn't do anything here. I didn't touch it. The next button on the main form. Okay, let's take a look. Oh yeah, maybe. Maybe that's the problem. We forgot. That's neat. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3. Main form. Next. Next form. Back. That was weird. And it crashed. Right? I can't even do anything here, right? It's just that I'm in a crash situation. Right? So parent.show is not it. Right? Guys, this is going to happen to you, right? You're going to have to go back and forth on buttons. How am I going to show this thing that doesn't exist? That's right. There is nothing. There is nothing.
What I was thinking was, you could do parent dot, if you had given it a variable name, you could do parent dot, main form dot show.
I could.
Variable name, but it was just created as an anonymous object.
Okay, but let's just go like this, right? If I don't care to go back, right? If I don't care to go back, when I'm in my main form, all I need to do is go this, right? this dot hide, right? If I don't care to go back. If I close it up, I'm going to have a problem, right? So, and let's go back to this and get rid of parent.show, okay? Because this is the thing that you're going to have problems. You're going to, Tom, it didn't work. How come it didn't work? Yeah.
Could you assign the form to, like when it before it closed, could you assign it to like a, I know we shouldn't use public variables, but like a property or something?
Ah, now you're thinking.
So, can you do that?
Could, but the thing is, I mean, what you're doing is you're passing along all the information from that form when you're instantiating it, right? So it's almost like form control passes to this one, right? It's passing it to this one, and the object that I'm instantiating, is it the real object that I'm calling? Like, it's almost like I'm making a copy of a copy. This is a great example. Okay, so we're talking about transporting, right? You go into transporter and you transport yourself, like or a teleporter, right? So I go into the teleporting box, I appear over here. Is it me? Not in this context, because what I'm doing is I'm disintegrating myself and creating myself over here, right? In the same way as forms work, right? So here I am, I'm the form, I'm the calling form, and now I'm gonna create Kevin. Kevin, you're the next form that comes up. Stand up, Kevin. Right? So here we're going to play a game, right? So here I'm the calling form, and I hide myself right over here, right? And I pass the information about myself to Kevin. Now Kevin, teleport me. Is it me? It's not going to be me. It's going to be a copy of me, and I'm going to be here in the background hanging out. And if you close the original form over here, unless I pass it by reference, I'm creating an object, right?
So I'm talking about if you assign it to, since it's an object, you assign it to another, like a variable name.
By reference.
It's all referenceable because it's an object. It's going to just reference that object's location and memory anyway.
Yeah, I could.
If it was like an integer.
What about if I go that way, right? And I know this object exists, right? And I want to I want to go back to my form. So here I'm in next form. Couldn't I just say, I know main form is there, right? Because main form exists, just like next form exists or whatever. It does exist, right? So here's main form. And if you notice, there's different things I can do. Main form, I have different properties, okay? So for example, if you notice there's active form and different things, I can enable different properties. What if I'm just putting it out there for you, right? What if I activated a different event or a different object that exists in main form? Like example, I don't know, if I want to activate my function in next form, as an example, to close the form down, close the whole application down, from main form, because it's the parent form that's creating this next button, right? As an example, if I activate my next form, if I go my next form, here it is, and if I look for the object, like for example the next button, right? I don't see it. Where's that next button? How do I activate that control that's going to exist on my new form? Right, here's nextForm.show. I've instantiated it, right? The problem is I can't access any of the objects because they're encapsulated. Good? Yeah. I want you to look it up. Seriously. I want you to go to Google, right? And I want to go shifting between forms, C#. How do I do it? Seriously. Because this is a good search. Because you're going to do this kind of stuff. Someone's going to forget. We're going to be talking about it here. We're going to be recording it on video, right? It's 12:07. And then come your exam time, you're going to go, I have no clue how to do it. Right? So I'm going to leave that with you for a second. Someone, if you want to, one person wants to, maybe you want to look it up on Google, see how I figure it out. Right? Because I can go to the next form, and I can go to the next form, and I can go to the next form. Well, how about the way back? How do I go back to a previous form? What do I do? Do I do it in my main? That's one way of doing it, right? But if I go to my main, if I do it here in program.cs, the way we've shown it, so example would be, here's main form, and when I'm done, I can name this form something else. Instead of doing main form here, we talked about this, right? We can create a main form. So we have a main form that we've declared, if you will, right? And I can call this my main form, just to go with what we're talking about, equals to new main form, right? And then instead of passing new main form here as an anonymous function, method, if you will, or anonymous class, actually be called an anonymous inner class, right? I would pass it in just main form, right, itself, right? Because instead of new main form, I'm going to pass in main form, right, or my main form, sorry. I'm going to call it, okay? And sorry, I got to put this here, right? This would work the same way, no? So if I ran this, right, it says there are build errors, right? Let's see where the build errors are. It says there are 2 errors, and I probably left something here. Expected, I missed something. Am I next? Yeah, that's good. Right here. But here now, look, my main form, if I'm right, how come it doesn't exist in this context, in new form? Because it's a variable inside of main, right? And I haven't passed it into this thing. This is an encapsulated area here, right? So it's not going to show anything. So here I am. I disguise this. I run it. It runs. Here's my splash screen, right? 1, 2, 3. Here's my main form. 1, 2, 3. I go next, and I go back, and it crashes, right? It doesn't work because it doesn't work, right? It's just doesn't go anywhere right now. Kind of hides it. I can't open up my previous form. I can't go back. If I recreated it, if I was to go to my back button, if I didn't care about keeping my information, if I didn't care, right, then what you said was true. I could do this. I could say again, main form. I can redeclare it and recreate and reinstantiate it, right? My main form again, because it doesn't matter. My context is different, right? Is equal to new main form. I could do the same exact thing, and I can just basically say main form dot show. Oh, sorry, my main form dot show. But this main form, from a variable passing perspective, and the original one that I had are 2 different variables, 2 different objects, and so everything that was existing on my previous form is destroyed. And the only way that I could pass data back to it is for me to pass the ball. That's what I kept on saying. Is pass the ball back to this form. Got to pass the ball back, and then now next form is the parent form. So if I closed off main, next would still be up and running, right? And this is the conundrum you run into, right? So which one do you close? How do I close off the whole app? Right? What about my X button? What does it do? Does it just close that form off? How do I program my X button? Right? So here's my main form that shows. Let's try this. Let's see if that works. So here's my splash screen, 1, 2, 3. It goes to my main form. I go next. I go back, and here it is. It looks like my main form, but it's not my original main form, guys. It's not. This is a new thing, right? I've designed my main form. I've instantiated it, but it's not the same object, right? So you're going to run into issues around that, and just someone's going to say, well, how come? Where do my variables go? They're all blank again, right? Because it's not the same old form. And if I close this one off, right, my application doesn't close because the new control form is next form, right? That's the problem. So look it up. That would be a quick and dirty way to do it, and it's how you can't find anything on there, right? Can you find anything on there?
I haven't found anything. I've been looking at that problem.
There's no solution to it that way. It's not a simple solution. VB is different. In VB, show and hide and everything else, you can shift back and forth. This, it won't allow you to do it like this, like how we're doing here. So for the exam, if I'm asking you to move from form A to form B and back, if I ever ask you to move back, what I'm asking you to do this. It's okay.
No way to do it.
I'm not going to, I don't want to teach it to you right now, okay? Let's put it that way, okay? Because otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to get confused, and we're going to go into we're going to open up a whole other can of worms kind of thing, right? So let's leave it at this. So but the problem is this is not the same old form. So in other words, for me to go into main form now, for me to pass the information that I have here accumulated in next form, let's say if I pass information from the original main form to the next form, I pass information onto there, and now I want to go back, I got to take my main form and have getters and setters on my new main form, or to pass it back. So I have to have getters and setters on each form. So I can pass information, the ball back and forth, basically. That's what I'm doing, right? Okay? If I want to pass on, if I'm passing on from form A to form B to form C, and I want to go back to form A again, I got to have getters and setters on form B to pass back to. I pass the ball back, and then I go back to form A. And when I go back, I'm not really going back. I'm instantiating a whole new form again, and I pass the ball back into its getters and setters. Right? And whichever form is there is the one that's going to take control. The problem here is, and I'm telling you, with this kind of system where I'm keep instantiating the forms, I'm not closing off those other forms. Those forms are all open and hidden. Right? If I used show dialog, however, right? If I use show dialog, which is different than show, okay? And here's the better way to do it, right? So instead of my next form dot show, I go my next form dot show dialog, right? What am I doing with show dialog, right? If I do a close here, right? This dot close. Can I do this? That just hides it. Oops, I can actually type it properly. Right here it is. This dot close. And if I go back to my next form, here's my next form. And instead of my main form dot show, let's just for the purposes of this this thing, just sub this out for now. I'll come back in a second to this one. What was that? Well, let's see. So let's just try it out. So here it is, start form. Here's my splash screen 1, 2, 3. I made the other one main, so it comes up. I go next, as an example. And I don't know what happened. What happened? Right? I'm just trying to show you different options, guys. Yeah, it's locked up, right? What happened? Look, click the button, but nothing happened, right? Because when I do my form, my next form show dialog, and then I do this dot close, right? If I do this first, right? If I put this dot close up here somewhere, right? And then I do show dialog, I'm not going to ever have a show dialog because my form is closing before it's making it. So it's got to be, this is the right position. If I go hide, here it is, this dot hide, and I can try it again. I'm doing a show dialog.
Might be something with that show dialog.
Why? Look, here it is. Oop. Shifted control back. Because now, this is the problem. And remember what I've done, even though I'm hiding it, topmost, I've put topmost on this stupid form, right? Because I'm trying to save my my bacon. Hate to use that word, but anyways, let's just say I want to save myself. So I've put in this topmost is equal to true, and because topmost is equal to true, even though it's hidden, it becomes top and it becomes disabled. The form becomes disabled, right? So if I run it again, here I am, splash screen. It's going to be minimized or because of my environment. Here I am, and I go next. Now it works, right? Here it is hidden in the background, right? As a dialogue. This is a dialogue, right? This is still here, right?
A long way around it.
Wait. We're not cut down the examples here.
Okay.
One more time, right? Okay. Here we go again. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, here it is, hidden. I go next. There it is again. No. This is a modal form, guys. It's modal, right? I can't do anything here. And if I kill this, yeah, it kills my main because I told it to hide or close or whatever. But what I'm actually saying to you is this. When I shift control to a modal form with show dialog, that doesn't fix my problem, right? However, I'll tell you that most Windows forms work just like that. So let's say you have an installer program. Don't you ever notice that the installer in the background is running? Like you actually see another window, and then there's layers sometimes, one on top of the other, to get to that next one. Because the way it works is you have the first window, it's modal, so it goes to the next one. This one you can't touch until this one's done. Then you go to the next one. Now this one you can't touch until this next one's done. Or maybe you close that one off and go to the next modal form and so on. So depending on the effect that you want, if you want this first form to stay open, right, while the other one's doing it, if you put close in there, right, this dot close, well, that's all fine and good, but it's not going to do anything. It's not going to. If you put close, it'll close off the application as soon as the show dialog thing is done. So if you click the last form, that's a great way of closing the application down, because you're saying I'm shifting controls to this next form. When this next form closes, now close me. That's okay, right? If that's the effect you want. But if you want to go shifting back and forth, this is not what you want, because it doesn't mean that just because I'm showing dialogue instead of show, it's not going to change the outcome. My form, which is this main form as an example, isn't going to be, I can't go back to it, right? Because my main form is the parent form, right? So let's go to the next form. I like your idea with parent, right? So if I look at parent, right, there's a bunch of other stuff here. There's parent, parent changed, all kinds of stuff that you can do. Here's the parent form, right? And if I click onto it and I go parent form, right, I can look at activate, whatever, all kinds of other forms. But for me to go to the show, right, here it is, the show or show dialog, right? If you notice, this isn't the same as, it doesn't highlight the same, right? Why doesn't this highlight the same? Because it says form container control parent form gets the form that the container control is assigned to. Okay, it should do what you're saying, right? But it's not colored the same way. I can't show the form anymore. It's already shown, right? I want to activate it. I want to activate some part of it. It's hidden. My form is hidden. It's not gone, right? So what if, I'm just like saying, what if I was going to say form activated, right, which is my,
The opposite of hide?
well, activate is when I actually do, this is my event, form activated, right? And what if I set this to true or something like that? Is that possible?
No, because it's an event, not a...
I can't, yeah, I can't do that.
Activate, not activated.
Okay, let's try that. Form, parent form dot activate, right? Can I do that? And I can't do it.
Use the bracket because it's functional.
Right. So like this you're talking about.
Yeah.
Would that work? Right?
I don't even know what the activate function does, so.
And it's not this, would I want to hide this or close this? I think probably hide it is what I want to do here. Right? Let's try it again. Some over here, da-da-da-da. Yeah. Next. Back. Pretty ugly. It says object reference not set to an instance of an object, right? Because there is no instance there, right? I'm trying to activate my parent form, which doesn't really exist in my context. I don't know I can try and go back to it. If I go parent.activate, can I make it true?
No.
Right? I can't do that either, right? Like people might try and do this. Look, but it's going to give me an error because it says cannot assign to activate because it's a method group. Right? How about form.load?
Again, that's a property or state, not a verse.
Right? That can't work, right? And so on. And if you scroll down here, there's lots of stuff you can look at from a parent form, because you can do things like, you can try and do stuff like click, context change, or whatever. I could do the load, like load, right? I could do this, parent form.load, which will create it again, but it gives me an error. It says, occurs before a form is displayed for the first time. So I can't do that. I could try and show again, like I did, but that's not going to work because if I go show, it doesn't know what this means, and it's going to crap out. Right? So here it is, my splash screen, and then next, and then back. And then it's going to crap out like this. And it's going to say, meh, object reference is not set to an instance of an object. Okay, so let's leave it alone for now. I've kind of given you the examples of how to finish this off, how to fix it, right? For now, yes?
Did you do the pass by reference?
We could try. We tried it?
I tried it, it didn't work.
Didn't work, right?
It won't let me pass the parent form by reference down.
Into the child.
Yeah.
Before we go to the next little presentation, before you guys go, because I've got one more thing to show you guys. Is there anything else you want to talk to me? Does there anyone else have any suggestions about how to go back and forth? Right.
The cheating way I can think of is to minimize it, but then it's still on the taskbar and so forth. So.
How to go back
Was that?
Wizard, you asked?
How to go back and forth? How to go back and forth without, doing what I'm doing here? Like the other way would be. All right. So no other thing. So let's pause it here.